Welcome to the ArcFlash podcast, sparking innovation in the data center space. I'm Kevin Aboden.
And I'm Jabez and we're here to provide a balanced, nuanced, and hopefully unbiased view on the state and most pressing topics affecting the data center and hyperscale cloud industry. We want to see our industry succeed, but we're also not naive cheerleaders nor doomsayers. What we ultimately believe is the best way forward to see the industry experience sustainable growth is by addressing and being transparent with the challenges and sharing the key themes and trends that are unfolding in this sector. And I've been covering this space as an industry research analyst since 2011 and currently lead the data center and hyperscale cloud research practice at Structure Research.
I've also been in the industry for quite a while. I believe it was 2007 I started looking at the data center industry, so it's been a minute. But today we have a very special guest. We have Mr. Lee Kirby from Salute Mission Critical, who was one of the original founders of the company. And Lee, if you can introduce yourself, tell everyone a little bit about Salute, and then
You
we have some
bet. Thanks
questions
for
for you
having me
as well.
today. So Salute's been around now a little over 10 years. We've had a phenomenal growth rate, over 1,100 employees in 12 countries. And I was the co-founder with Jason Oakroy, and it's been just a phenomenal story. And we've had great partners like Edge Connects that have helped us along the way and to grow and to learn and to be able to give back to veterans, military spouses, and to, I think, really help the industry understand the value of the military community and what we can bring to the industry.
Well, absolutely. And I think because Salute is unique on the space, we're curious what prompted the founding of Salute? What was the initial thought process behind that? And I guess as a follow up, looking back 10 years ago or the intervening period, was it very difficult for the industry to catch on or accept hiring veterans? Or what were some of the
In
challenges there?
2012, I was retiring from the military, and we had a unique situation. We had gone through a financial meltdown in '08, '09. We'd had a couple surges in Iraq, and people were getting off of active duty, much larger numbers than normal. So the average person that had signed up and enlisted for 4 years was probably 25% unemployment rate, 25 to 30-year old. I wanted to do something about that because I wanted to continue serving, but I'd been in the data center industry forever, and I felt like I could use my opportunity, my relationships and network and experience to do that. Looked at our data center industry, and we needed talent. I saw the talent there, but our industry had always gone to the military and hired just those who were fully qualified. Your telecommunications experts from the Air Force, your Navy electricians and nuclear specialists in the Navy, but had never really looked at the whole gamut, because if you look at 200, 250,000 veterans getting off of active duty, they were only going after a pool that's 1% to 2% of that. So I wanted to broaden that spectrum and open up the entire pool. So Jason and I came up with the concept of let's show the value, which is beyond the specialty anyone had, and bring on people that have infantry, truck drivers, cooks, whoever they are, and leverage their leadership skills and their critical thinking, their adaptability, put them through a training program and turn them into data center technicians. And we wanted to prove that you could do this so that the industry as a whole could learn that there's an entire resource pool there, that if they have the right training programs in place, they could tap into that and help solve the talent shortage.
And was the industry very amenable to that when you first brought this up, or was there some reticence, or was there confusion on the
Human
part of the
nature
operators?
always is a little reticent about change, and I think that some stood back and said, let's wait and see. EdgeConneX was one of our early customers that believed in us and gave us the chance to prove it, and we proved it just perfectly. And we've grown with EdgeConneX along the way, and they've been a great partner because we've learned from them, and I hope they've learned from us. But we proved that we could bring in the combat arms, but we also bring in the Navy nukes. And depending on where you're at in your technical skills depends on how much we need to train you. So we either start you at the remedial level or the advanced level. And a lot of people don't realize that even if you bring in somebody that's fully qualified, you still need to have a transition program, because you've got to train them on your site and your specific policies and your safety and your culture. So there always has to be a training program. A lot of people were trying to look at doing it on the cheap, just bring somebody in, slap them in, and let them go discovery learning. That's a risk to the company as well. So, what we're hoping to teach to the industry is one, the value of the community, but two, the need to invest in those training programs. And we've shown that there is an ROI on veterans, because as a company, we're growing at 3 times the rate of the industry. And our industry, is growing crazy at 18 to 20% a year. We're growing at 40 to 45% a year. So rather than try to get people to adopt based on the cultural issues that we're bringing, the societal kind of goodness that we do, we want them to adopt based on the business value and realize that there is an ROI on investing in these training programs and bringing veterans, military spouse, guard, reservists into the industry and investing in their training. And you'll find out that you get a great workforce with a cultural underpinning of people that understand how to think critically under pressure, and their leadership skills will give them the ability to move up the ranks very quickly. So slow to adopt, quick to copy. Once you get a few in the door, then that's where we saw the hockey stick about year 4. People started seeing that it was working. Once it's working, then they pile on and start trying to get a hold of it.
Yeah, and Lee, it looks
And
like
I
you have.
completely. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's not, no worries. And Lee, I want to jump in here because I think what you're saying is super interesting in terms of you being a partner to the data center operators. And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys also work with other parts of the industry as well, including hyperscalers, and I'm assuming developers as well. Could you give us a sense? I know you guys have some pretty good brand names on your customer list, like Cloudflare and EdgeConneX, and some of the biggest, largest data center operators. What are some of the similarities and differences that you've encountered working with these, separate parts of the
Our
ecosystem?
ecosystem is fascinating to me. And what's great is we work with all the hyperscalers and we work with tons of the co-location providers. And what we find is that we work with a hyperscaler directly in their data centers, then we'll work with a co-location provider that has that hyperscaler as a tenant. So we already know their protocols. So it makes it much easier on the operations side. So we're working with a known in a co-location provider that is a known, and it makes it very easy for us to be able to integrate and be a trusted partner to both the hyperscaler and the colo provider. So we end up with customers on both sides, and it makes that integration between the 3 companies very easy. And I think that's helped with our growth. And that's what I like about this industry is while it may be complex and layers there, if you've broken the code and you understand how to deal with each of those layers, it gives you a real advantage.
Yeah. And if are you seeing because of there's been this new wave of catering for higher density compute clusters, that is that affecting the way that you look at operations and um, the operational side of your business, or is it sort of business as usual and you're sort of just the catering for these next generation workloads are just an extension of what you guys have already
It's
done?
more of an adaptation of what we're doing and the tools that we're putting in place to be able to manage them. It's pretty fascinating seeing that concentration, that densification that's going on, but it's also with the AI revolution that's coming through, we're seeing that that's driving demand, but it's also driving capability. And I can't talk to the details of it because I don't have them, but I'm hearing from our operations team how we're seeing the autonomous drones that are being able to go around and do rounds and reads and then drop that data into an AI enabled CMMS type system that then trends out automatically based on those reads. Where used to in the old days, 5 years ago, we would have to put that into a database, then correlate it out, then run the algorithms to be able to report out and get real predictive analysis going to be able to use predictive maintenance programs. But now it's all automated. So giving us that capability to know that something's going to fail in 2 months rather than spending a month figuring out it's going to fail in 2 months is really going to increase our capability so we can do more with the staff that we have, because while the talent shortage may be there, the demand is ever increasing. So if we can do more with the staff that we have with the demand that's coming on, I think AI is going to hit us on both sides, both demand and capability. So that's exciting to me. Yes.
Industry changing paradigm, right? To use a lot of buzzwords. I guess, I've heard this story individually from several people, as you mentioned, through our partnership that have been working with us directly. But from the side of those who are getting out of the military and who are looking at a career in the data center industry, how does that look from that perspective? Is this an easy sell, so to speak, if they're trying to learn from scratch? or does it take a little bit of convincing, like, hey, this is a really growing industry, this could be beneficial for as a career path?
I
How does
think the
that
data
work?
center industry now needs to take a step back and realize that we're competing with other industries. You've got the space industry and robotics and AI and some really cool stuff going on out there. We're a cool industry too, and we're growing like crazy. But where 10 years ago we were growing and exciting and could attract people, we have to compete for that talent now. We need to get out there to the military community and convince them that we're a better solution, or we're a better match, or culturally we're what you need. I think there's a competitive landscape now that has changed, and we need to make ourselves more attractive to the military, because the military community is being sought out by all of these industries. I think people have woken up to the value of veterans. We see when we go to the bases and our recruiters and talent acquisition people that we're no longer the only technology people there. They're being swarmed and they're being attracted to. So we need to, as an industry, and that's why I try to work to get everybody in the industry out there realizing that we're in competition with the other industries. Let's partner together and get out there and advertise ourselves.
And not take that for granted that just because we pay well or that we're growing, that we can just grab everyone off the shelf, that this is going to take a lot of marketing
It
from
is,
as an
and there's
industry,
kind
right?
of a subtle thing that I've been pushing for, a jewel in that community that people often overlook, and that's the military spouses. But if you look at it on the long term, if we can get more companies hiring military spouses so that they're not having to change their jobs and their careers every 2 to 3 years, but they can have an ongoing career, there's one thing that you've got. Then at the end of 20 years, that military spouse has a husband or wife that's going to be getting out that has a track record with a company. You've got a good chance at getting that husband or wife to be starting a career with you at the end of their career. So if you make that long-term investment in a military spouse, you've got a leg up on the competition. And we're finding a lot of great resources out there, because you look at a military spouse's resume, it usually won't get through your algorithms on your HR systems, and a lot of them are having to reinvent themselves, and they'll have multiple degrees, they'll have tons of experience, but their adaptability and ability to learn and get over the learning curve quickly is just like a veteran. And we've hired tons of them at Salute, and I know Edge Connects has well, and they always outperform.
Yeah, it sounds like.
So we should be looking at recruiting whole families as in addition to
Exactly.
individuals,
And it's
correct?
funny, you talk to the military community, and we're a small portion of the country, but almost everybody that's in the military, their parents were, and then their kids are. So it's a very tight knit community. It's almost like a family business. So if you get one in, you've got contacts to the others.
Yeah, and I can attest to that, Lee, because my dad was a military officer for over 30 plus years of his life, and you're right. There's a lot of parallels that you can draw with the skills that you pick up in the military, like attention to detail and discipline and all of that stuff that can translate very well into data center industry that has a very high threshold for excellence and sort of low tolerance for like things going wrong within a data center. And it sounds like you've got a really nice niche because everyone's looking for talent outside in the private sector, whereas you found that talent residing within this huge pool of military veterans or officers that are transitioning out, and you found a home for them. So that's really exciting to see.
Exactly, and it's changes it from being maybe 5, 10, 20,000 veterans we're looking at to 200,000 veterans a year rolling off of active duty, looking at the Guard and Reserve, and just getting that resource pool larger so that we can bring them in. And a consequence of partnering with our companies is there's a certain number of people that are going to leave Salute every year, and we let them leave to our customers, and we celebrate that because then we backfill them and continue doing our services. So we help get veterans and military spouses started, but some of them are going to stay with us, some of them are going to leave. That's just the way employment goes. But if they leave to your clients, you've got friends on the inside, and you continue to build that culture and relationship and ecosystem out into the industry. And I think it's a very powerful thing.
Yeah, that's an amazing flywheel effect that you've got going on. And you mentioned earlier about how you're looking into like next generation technology like drones and whatnot to supplement what the human side of your company is doing on the operations side. Um, automation seems to be, on your mind a lot in terms of how can you scale and optimize what you're doing today, and maybe use all these new types of AI tools to really um, get the most out of your human capital. What's been going on that front from your
Yeah,
side?
it's really fun stuff listening to the teams. We've got an innovation committee, and they're piloting several projects with drones and with AI, and how they can take that data and automatically update it. And there's no longer this putting data in twice. You capture the data once, it goes in, and there's no intervention by humans. And some of these tools can even take it and automatically get your work schedules together based on this person has the training for this type of activity, they're qualified for it, and they're going to be working Tuesday, so let's schedule them for that task, because you want to make sure the right person is scheduled. And if you've ever done supervisory work trying to figure out if you've got the right training for the technician that you're about to assign a task, that's all done automatically. And the cool stuff that they're coming out with is really taking away some of the administrative, not really value added stuff, so that you can really focus on the complex things. So I'm excited about the capabilities that we're going to be implementing probably in Q1 to really take us to the next level. And just the thing that gives us that capability is the culture we've built, where it's very inclusive and everybody can get their ideas on the table. And the backgrounds are so different that we bring in from the military, that there's guys that come to us with drone experience from the military, and people that come with all these different experiences, getting them on the table and having their voices heard. And we're finding out all kinds of cool ways to use the technology. So it's pretty exciting what's going to be happening.
Well, and that kind of dovetails into another question that we were thinking about leading up to this episode, is that because there's so much more technology through in different military pathways now, is it going to be more difficult to actually recruit folks leaving the military coming up? Or do you think there'd be more of an inclination to stay in just because of the variety of skills that are being learned? Or do you think there will still be a robust pathway and people
I
leaving
think the
pretty
pattern has been
consistently?
there where people do leave, because some people like the military life, some don't. It's all an individual. But I think in aggregate, we'll still have a good supply chain of people coming off of active duty, because not everybody wants to have that for their entire 20, 30 years, but some do. I went into active duty and did my 4 years enlisted, and got out and did a career in the reserves, and then just got called up a bunch of times. That was the path I chose. But others want to go in and stay in for the whole 20, and others just do 4 and out. So I think in aggregate, we'll still have that supply chain there. But what's great is the military really does have the leading edge on technology and products that are being put into place, that as we get those veterans coming off of active duty, we're able to capture those skills and those practical hands on experiences that are really invaluable, because you don't get that anywhere else. But at the same time, that opens them
Yeah,
up to
and
other industries. So we as an industry need to really think it's a competition, and we need to outpace the other industries when it comes to recruiting.
and Lee, I get this question a lot speaking to the investor community. So I'm hoping you can shed some light on it, or maybe debunk this statement that I think a lot of people are quick to throw out, which is that at some point the industry is going to move to a fully software defined data center, where you'll basically have, you know very few, if not no, humans inside the data center, where it's all automated by robots and software. And given how much time you've spent, on the operations side, and building your business, what is your take on that statement? Are we ever going to reach that trajectory, or will there always be this need for a base of human capital that will need to run and operate these facilities?
I have always wanted there to be world peace as well. I think that and world peace would be the ultimate conclusion to our life. And I hope that both of those happen in my lifetime. I don't see either one of those happening in our lifetime. It's far more complex to achieve. Pick either one of those. They're both very complex to achieve. They've been trying for that my entire career. I think you got a better chance at being generatorless data centers than being totally software defined networks that can fail over and have nobody on site. There's just too many variables, too many complex things that happen in the data centers to be peopleless. We can be less and less people than we are. That's one thing that's been so attractive about our model, is the old siloed model of running data centers, where you have a security vendor and a CE vendor and an IT vendor, is gone away. We've come in with the multi-service operator that will take care of all the hands-on activity that need to go on the site. And then when you need somebody that's an engineer, we can bring the engineer in, so you can reduce the number of people on site. I just I can't envision it being down to zero. On little edge sites, yeah, but on complex million square foot data centers that are processing and have so much equipment on it, until we figure out a magic formula for solving that and world peace, I'm not sure it's going to happen. But that's my crystal ball that didn't tell me to buy Apple 30 years ago either.
I think our SLAs always say that there's going to be some human intervention, right? So until we all, as an industry, trust that,
Typically, a
then
lot of
I think we're going to be
same
stuck with that.
discussion. I thought when you started talking about PEs, you were going to go down the route if it was going to AI was going to replace people and cut costs. I see AI not replacing people, but driving more demand for people, because as robotics come into the industry, we're still going to have people repairing the robots. It seems like every introduction of technology in my career, that I started in technology in '81, each time new technology was introduced, it was going to get rid of all these people, but each time it created new jobs for people and just different jobs. So it's always an and, not an or. And I don't know what it'll end up with, but I do think it'll give us more capabilities to be able to take on more demand.
And our demand is going to be healthy
Yeah.
for at least a decade or so, maybe a couple. So I
Yes,
think
we do.
we need people. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on with us this week, Lee. But definitely appreciating all your experience and everything you've done for the industry. And to everyone listening, we'll be back next week with another
Thanks for having
exciting
me.
episode. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Lee.